Hello, everyone. For this week's Engaging Spiritual Depth, I thought I would talk about construction or deconstruction and reconstruction, if you will. Deconstruction and reconstruction. And it seems to me to be a very timely thing to talk about right now because a lot of us, I think, feel as we start to come back together, the last 3 months or so have been a deconstructive type event. For those of us who have been to seminary, a lot of us are really shocked when we first get there because we're almost our theology and our faith, what we felt like was the normal or the usual or the tried and true ways that we had of thinking about things get deconstructed and they get broken down. And I'd like for us to sort of think about what has the last 3 months meant to many of us and how have we been deconstructed by it, and what do we do when we go about reconstructing ourselves and our worldviews and theologies and our relationships. So if you can imagine, I like to think about, and I got this from the dean of my seminary, the dean of the chapel, Kathy Kelsey. She talks about deconstructing being like a house, and it's a strong house, and maybe it's a house that you grew up in, that you've lived in your whole life. It's very familiar. It's very comfortable. You feel like it's extremely sturdy. You feel like you can predict what's going to happen inside this house. And I think for me, a lot of what my feelings are around as we hopefully move into a new stage of emerging from coronavirus, as I went into that, I felt like life was fairly predictable. Like I had and was constructing something that was predictable, that was reliable. And all of a sudden, everything like that strong house started to get taken apart. And it caused a lot of reactions in me, as I'm sure perhaps some anxiety and some fears caused some reaction in you as well. How did that process of deconstruction feel? And then let's think about, as we go forward, are we spending all of our time trying to reconstruct that house, the exact same house that we grew up in? Or possibly could we take part of that house and build a boat so that we have a house that we remember that we can still use for a house, but we've taken some of the materials and we've used it to lay the keel of a boat. And we can use some of the materials for the bow and the stern and maybe and we maybe build a sailboat. And a sailboat is a place where not only can we live if we need to, but we can go and have some new experiences. So are we going to try to recreate that house exactly the way it was? Or are we going to process that information, the feelings that we had, the trauma that, let's say, was associated with a lot of the anxiety that went around with this major disruptive and scary event for a lot of us called COVID-19. I think as I sort of wrap this up, one of the ways that we can process information or process feelings about a major significant event in our lives is to take a moment and to come up with 3 words that we can use to describe our entire experience. And I know it may seem like 3 months worth of massive changes in the way we interact with each other. We didn't have church for a long time. People were under stay-at-home orders. Many of us, particularly our older generation, were in fear that something was going to show up at their door, maybe on some groceries or maybe with one of their family members that might give them a virus that could make them very sick or go to the hospital, maybe even worse, maybe even die. How do you sum up all those thoughts and feelings and experiences into 3 words? But I would encourage you to try, because if you're able to encapsulate something, even if it takes a long time, encapsulate something into 3 words, you can sort of internally process that and from there decide, am I going to try to reconstruct that house exactly the way it was, or perhaps can I use some of those materials to make a boat? There's 3 words that are coming to my mind that I'll share with you, and they are the 3 words: anxiety, renewing, connection. And for me, anxiety, renewing connection, to me represents spiritual growth during a time of great anxiety, and how that anxiety in me led me to seek to renew a connection, not just a connection with God, but to appreciate the connections that I'm finding as I return to Kirkpatrick and meet so many people again, and we start to have church again. So anxiety, renewing connection. That's where I sort of am right now. What about you? If you take just a few moments and say, what does this mean to me? How am I processing this? And how could I sum it up in 3 words that will enable you to process that information and maybe kick off into a new direction? I'd love to hear what you're thinking. I'd love to hear some of your words. So if you could respond to this email, or to this video at the bottom of the YouTube video, and just give me a comment or shoot me your 3 words. Let me know if it's okay to share them. But if you don't tell me that it's okay to share them, then I won't share them with anybody. But I would really love to hear what you're thinking, and I hope this finds you well. God bless.